Keeps rolling with a win over the Raiders on Sunday. Bo Nix is already tied for the second most games with multiple passing touchdowns and 0 turnovers by a rookie in the Super Bowl era. He joins 2 players to win Offensive Rookie of the Year in Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud, and Hall of Famer in Dan Marino. Dan, what stands out on tape from Bo Nix and company?
This is not a dink and dunk offense. Number one, he's throwing big ends to Cortland Sutton and seems as good as anybody in the league. The big end is their dagger concept. They run it a ton. Him and Sutton want to be the more formidable duos in football. That shallow cross, if that linebacker comes up, I'm throwing that big into that big wide receiver. If he gets depth, I'm going to take the shallow cross. He cuts this ball loose as coverage gets lifted on a consistent basis to Cortland Sutton, knowing he's going to be in that vacated window. At the bottom is one of my favorite throws of the season. 4 up top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 offensive linemen. Vele at the bottom has what we call a Dino route. Post, corner, post. Watch when he cuts his ball loose. This ball's coming from the 42 to the opposite 30. That ball's an absolute rocket launcher right on Devon Vele's face mask. I think that there's this narrative or belief that this is a dink and dunk offense. Don't get me wrong. They build in their completions, as any good offense should. This young man is throwing the ball downfield. And when it comes to those ends and seams, he don't look like a rookie.
That was my takeaway as well, is that how he's been throwing over the middle of the field, which takes years to develop, even for NFL quarterbacks, has been special. The way he's navigating.
Arm strength is a little bit more surprising than anticipated.
Yeah, but even the placement, though, right? Like when you think about the linebackers, the safeties, where he's putting that for those receivers and pass catchers to save them from big hits, that is something you see mostly out of veteran quarterbacks. Now, I think the combination of his style of play, because beyond that, everything you talked about, those receivers, you can tell by the way that they've played, they trust Bo Nix is going to make the play.
Yeah.
They're staying alive. They're trusting his opportunity that even when it breaks down, he's getting outside the pocket. Yeah. He's making plays. And to your point about the screens, it's not dink and dunk. It's not running screens as an offensive crutch. It's running it as an opportunity to get the ball in the hands of the receivers to take pressure off your quarterback, but also make sure your receivers are getting involved down the field and immediately after the snap, more like an extension of the run game.
I think the way that he's playing, it would be surprising if they weren't the 7th seed in the playoffs, if they didn't get in. I would be surprised if they didn't get in. He's playing so well.
By the way, we see them on Monday.
Let's talk about this. Okay, any misconceptions that this is like a dink and dunk offense or whatever you want to say? Or it's not misconceptions, it's people that are just not watching Bo Nix and Denver Broncos playing, right? That's you having your preconceived notions, your opinions going into this season, not watching any of the games, maybe watching a few highlights here and there, watching random shows, looking at the box score if you care enough, and then you just like kind of make up a conclusion. But if you actually watch and see how this offense being run, you couldn't have a misconception about that. I mean, and did you hear what he said though? Where he said some of the throws that he's making, some of the things that he's doing, takes years to develop for a quarterback. Not only is it remarkable that Bo Nix is doing it, but I also want to highlight that's what people need to understand. It takes time to develop as a quarterback in the NFL, no matter who you are. Whether you're going to be the most generational, biggest talent in the history of the universe, whether you were the number 1 overall pick, and people knew you were going to be the number 1 overall pick when you were 10 years old, whether you're the last pick in the draft, doesn't matter. It takes time to develop. This is something that people just can't seem to just grasp their head around. They just can't. Whether you're talking about Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, like people are so obsessed with drawing such strong negative conclusions, and that it just doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna do a different clip for this as well, but literally Nick Wright just said on his quarterback mountain or whatever, and he said this now multiple times, Nick Wright from First Things First, saying that Bo Nix, he goes, this is going to be a classic 2 prediction, essentially that he's wrong now but he will be right a little bit later, that Bo Nix is tricking everyone into believing that he's an actual good quarterback. And again, those throws, the things that he's doing, the decisions that he's making, the arm strength that he's showing, the mobility that he's showing, there's zero evidence to believe that these are tricks. Please tell me why. If you're going to back up an extraordinary claim, you better present the extraordinary evidence. Is he just doing, even if this was just even if he just played nothing but bad teams, let's just say that was true. He was playing nothing but bad teams, bad defenses. the throws that he's making, the decisions that he's making in a vacuum would have nothing to do with playing bad defenses. You're either executing that offense and making the right decisions and making the top level throws or not. So even in a vacuum, if we just kind of dissect the film, even if you're doing this against the worst defense in the history of the NFL, it would not matter. Because the things that he's doing, that he's succeeding, he's not taking advantage of a bad defense. It's one thing if he was just throwing little 5-yard little passes and it's such a bad defense, they're terrible at tackling and they can't get any pressure to the quarterback, whatever it is, and they can just do screens all day, every single day, and they can just keep running the ball, hand the ball off and just pound it in, and they constantly they can get to like the red zone, and then it's just like, little short passes to get into the end zone. Right, and you get juiced up stats, no interceptions. Then you can like maybe make some of those arguments, but that's not what he's doing. That's not what the Denver Broncos are doing. So people are always so obsessed with looking at the opposing team, and I am too. I always consider the opponent. Always, 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 always. It's something that we only do in college. Then for whatever reason, you get to the NFL and people just like let go of, and it makes no sense to me. We're trying to actually get a realistic picture of what a team or a player is. But there's different layers to it. You have to continue to unpack it and think to yourself, okay, let's just say that's true. Which again, it's not even true in this example. I'm just trying to really unpack it where even if it is true, let's figure out why. Okay, you're playing a bad team, you're playing a bad defense. Is what you're doing, are you having success because you're taking advantage of that bad defense? Or are you doing something else on top of it? And that's what we continue to see Bo Nix do, whether he's playing a good defense, good team, bad team. Because sometimes you can have a great defense, but the offense is so bad, that the quarterback is so bad, that you're just given endless possessions, that now you're getting extra possessions. And so now you're just leaning on that defense. So again, all of these things have to be contextualized. So this automatic assumption that Bo Nix is one way or the other, because that's why I'm happy Dan Orlovsky even kind of pointed that out, where he's like, there's a lot of misconceptions around this team or around this offense. And again, because it's like, what is it actually based on? Where are these misconceptions actually coming from? And the only place they can be coming from are from people that have already made up their mind who Bo Nix is and will be. And then they're not watching these games. Because if you just watch the games and see how they unfold, you could see him making big time throws in big time moments. And that the Broncos are absolutely positively relying on him. Not only are they relying on him, but they need him. Right? There's a difference. Relying on him is putting a lot on his plate and saying, hey, I'm 3rd and 1, 4th and 2. We're putting the ball in your hands. Let's go. Needing him is like, dude, I need you. I'm the way how this game is unfolding, we don't have a choice right now. Like you have to just find a way to kind of get through this. And we saw him do it even when they failed, even when they lost to the Ravens, for instance. They needed Bo Nix to do anything he could, and he did. That's why that was one of my favorite games, even though the box score wasn't fancy, even though they obviously lost pretty convincingly. You saw how much of a gamer Bo Nix is. Catching touchdown passes. You saw what he was doing. So all of those things really matter, and that's why my head will explode when you hear some of the conversations surrounding this team, and it's just like it's kind of wild. And again, think of what Orlovsky's saying. He goes, this team. He goes, he would be surprised if they weren't the 7th seed, and that they didn't make the playoffs. And just think about that. I don't think almost anyone but super big-time hometown fans would have said that the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix were going to the playoffs. No one. I said it. Colin Cowherd said it. That's all who I can honestly really remember saying it. And Colin obviously is buddies with Sean Payton, so you're going to have a little bit of that effect. But he also has inside information. So he's talking to Sean Payton, and Sean Payton's saying, yo, Bo Nix is for real, let's go. And so Colin's like, hey, Bo Nix is for real, let's go. But it's just like it's crazy how quickly this franchise has turned around, and Bo Nix is a massive, massive reason for it. And it's just it'll continue to make me laugh how some of these takes continue to unfold. Because what it is I just did the quarterback mound from Nick Ray, where he said that about Bo Nix. And then as luck would have it, I just kind of came across this clip. So that's why it's like all fresh in my mind. And I'm just like, right, we have like these guys up here saying he's making big time throws, doing things in the middle of the field that it takes years to develop. The Broncos are relying on him, depending on him. There's all this connection with him. And then on the other side of the aisle, we got people saying, he's not actually that good. He's tricking people into believing that he's good. And it's just like, that is the beauty of sports talk, right? Everyone can have a different opinion, and if everyone just agreed with everyone, then there would be nothing to talk about, right? So in a way, I'm kind of like, grateful for it. Thank you for giving me stuff to work with. But it's also kind of like again, like I always say, what are we talking about here? Like where actually is the debate? And like I said, it just really comes down to people not actually watching the games, which most people don't. That's just the reality it is. Most people can't watch every single game. I get it. I don't blame them. They rely on shows like this to tell them how they should feel and how they should kind of unpack some of these things. But oftentimes it's wrong as well. So sometimes you got to really get into the weeds of all of this. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Denver Broncos and Bo Nix and kind of the plays that he's been making, the throws that he's been making, the quarterback that he's developing into, how he's literally proving to be a top rookie quarterback of all time so far based on, certain metrics? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.